Hi. Today, I wanted to spend some time and share my learnings experience in how to validate your idea. There are two answers to this aspect. One is a short one is a long one. Short one, find your target customer, talk to them, build a case study, build an MVP, start selling. It's easier said than done. But however, most of us, I think, will resort to going a little bit more deeper into understanding if your idea makes sense. And if it makes sense, what category do you fall in? I'll talk about all these things in the video and how you should start validating the idea to make a meaningful outcome. Through this video, I'll share some tips and tricks and also a few tools which have really helped me in ideating Haplo and Studio Navaka together. Before we move forward, if you're new to the channel, my name is Hari and I run this channel Ideation Unplugged to share my experiences and expertise in how to build winning products. Let's dig deep into the subject now. The short answer, as I said, find out the nearest competitor, look what they're trying to offer, identify all the functions what they offer and what you feel personally is missing in their offering, and validate if those missing things are also felt by others and start building a product in that segment. It's easy. But let's delve into a little longer version of it and understand how you can validate your idea before you even start doing your market research. Let me bring in a little different aspect to this entire exercise, which is effectuation. If you have not heard about the effectuative thinking methodology, I highly recommend you to visit their website, which is down in the description. Effectuative thinking methodology is an outcome of research of Professor Saras Saraswati, who's a professor at University of Virginia, and she also is the Jamuna Raghavan Chair Professor at IIM Bangalore. She has been in this area for quite some time. She's built businesses before she embarked on her PhD and a research-oriented journey. And the outcomes are really amazing. And I have to admit that both the ideas what I had for Haplo and Studio Navaka, both are outcomes of effectuative thinking. And after this, I will also share one more tool which added to my effectuative thinking methodology, which is nothing but mindstorming. So these two are very interesting concepts. So I hope you will take the value out of them. So let's start with the effectuative thinking methodology. What is effectuative thinking and what are the underlying principles of this methodology? The first one is bird in hand, which is the means. Always start your solution with what you have. Predominantly, what happens is when we start to build something, we start with assumptions. And second thing we look at is how do I get these things in place before I start building what I want. Leave out all the other aspect and start with what you have. That's the most important thing. Consider what you have and how you can derive value from what you have. For instance, when I started the YouTube channel, there are a lot of videos on YouTube saying how do you start a YouTube channel, what's the equipment you require, what is the lighting you require, all these things. And most of the videos are professionally done in studios. But if you go back to their first 100 videos, you'll be amazed. People have done it using their phone. They've done it using some camcorder. And over a period of time, when they started making money is when they invest in higher equipment to make it more professional. Any famous channel you want to check on YouTube, do that, and you will go back and see how they started. Everybody has that amazing journey. So start with what you have in hand, and then opportunities keep opening up. The second principle is, what can I do? One of the most important questions when people have ideas is, should I leave my job? Should I leave what I'm doing and focus on things? I'm not a strong proponent of that. Don't jump into building your product or service as a full time unless you're very, very strong on your financial background, or you're going to get funding. All these aspects, if you are good at and strong at, then consider doing that. But otherwise, 99.99% of us, including me, we start with what is in my hand and what is that I can do to build on this. That's how we look at the entire ideation process. Now, start looking at what is it that you can do. It's also called the affordable loss. What am I losing by doing this? If you start asking that question, probably the answers will suffice for you to before going ahead. The third part, which I'm a very, very strong proponent of, is co-creation. All of us, when we are starting to build something, we think that we can do everything. I cannot do everything. I need to use tools. Today, a lot of tools are available as SaaS subscription. For example, when I started Studio Navaka, I needed something for my calendar management. So I picked up a service, right? And I wanted a video editing tool when I started with my YouTube videos. I started using the iMovies on my laptop. I didn't go ahead and get anything. There are many tools which you can start using by paying subscription, which can be very economical but also help you to get started with. If not anything else, you can just leave your email ID and people will reach out if whenever required and if they want something else more out of it. But today's entrepreneurship is all about co-creation and coexistence. The moment you start thinking in that way, in my previous video, I talked about various models, the pipes and the platforms and all these things. If you look at any of those examples, they are all co-creation. Amazon is an outcome of co-creation. It is not a single company. They survive on people coming and selling it on the platform. And what they focus on is bringing many, many more products into the platform so that they can start focusing on it and only their platform, and it will help them build their organization. The fourth point is control versus prediction. As an entrepreneur, I'm a part of certain groups, and one of the most important conversations when people have online is, how do I retire early? How do I make money to fulfill this stream? How much should be my spending? How much should be my... So 90% of the conversations online are related to financial matters. Now, there are only 1, 2 people, 3 people who have answers to certain things. If you want this kind of a corpus, start investing so much, so much. So this gets into that tangent. In the similar way, if you are wanting, I'm sorry about it, that's my boy. If you are wanting to build an idea or an enterprise of your own, one thing is you need to have control of what you do. Point number 1. And second aspect, as you have control of what you want to build, you also need to understand how to predict how the idea is going to pivot over a period of time. For instance, I'll give a classic example of the palm devices which came early 2000s. They came as PDAs and they went into the smartphone business. But 2006, when iPhone launched, it changed the world forever. One of the things what they did not foresee is the power of a smartphone which can have all these aspects built into it, and how it can shatter their dreams, and the pivoting got very, very difficult. So the BlackBerry is another classic example. They solely believed and banked on the safety and security of the device, but you see the history. Today, hardly anybody uses a BlackBerry device, but BlackBerry device is something what you can not break. I really wish I used a BlackBerry and I loved the product. I never wanted to come out of it. I kept pushing, but at one point of time, I had to give up and move over to other phones. So as an entrepreneur, having that visibility into the future is very, very important to understand how you need to pivot. When we started Haplo, initially it was a co-working software, but 2 years into it, we quickly realized that this is not going to be $1 million company, because even though co-working spaces were coming up way back 2018-19, something was telling us this is not a sustainable model, and only few people are going to survive or sustain, and small businesses might be there, small spaces might be there, but the technology is not going to be too heavy with them. And we were right. 2019 we came out and we started with the commercial real estate, and 2020 COVID came and things changed a lot for co-working spaces. And today, if you see the history, there are co-working spaces around the world, but there are only few players who are really, really controlling the whole marketplace of the co-working play. The last one is leveraging your contingencies. You will always have a question of how do I manage this problem? I'll give you a small example. Again, my personal example. When we were building the Acubno platform, I partnered with a friend of mine who had a services company. He was helping me build it. He said, Hari, don't recruit anybody. I'll help you build it. We went ahead. We had an agreement. We started building it. We started selling. After a year and a half, 2 years, he decided to sell the company and move on. But the new company which came in said, we can't do it for the price what he was doing it. And we also don't work on partnerships. Pay us and take the service. So I had only few months in hand to rewrite the whole thing and start, continue the support to my clients. So that's one contingency which I didn't foresee, and that was a big learning lesson for me. And today we have taken care of the contingencies of these kind of aspects. So as an entrepreneur, it's a learning. So once you get into the problem, again, it gets into a solution, and that becomes a learning. And no problem is a repeat problem, because you've already solved it once. Your mind will tell you how to solve it again. So keep that in mind in terms of leveraging your contingencies and how you can take care of not breaking up when actually that contingency comes in. And as humans, we can only plan so much, but with so much of learning content available around in the world today, you can plan for a few more. And trust me, no two entrepreneurs will have the same problem. So keep an eye, keep the aspect of leveraging your contingencies very well. These 5 aspects of effectuated thinking, if you go into the website, they have lots of articles, they have loads of videos which they upload there, which will make a lot of sense, and highly recommend that you make use of that information. As I mentioned before, this is something what made a huge impact in my learning process when I was starting up. The second aspect is mindstorming. This is really, really different, and it blew my mind when I did the exercise the first time. So there's a website, Paul Guion Mindstorming by Brian Stacy. The link is in the description. Go there, he'll explain it. I'll explain it here today and how I did. It's a very, very simple exercise. There are some prerequisites though. Switch off your mobile phone, switch off your Wi-Fi, switch off your laptop, take a pen and paper, sit in a calm place where nobody is going to disturb you for a while. Please tell your friends or family, if you're doing this exercise at home, please do not disturb me, or if you're far away, simple, switch off your mobile phone and just focus without getting distraction. Start with a question. Translate your idea into a question. All right. I'll give you a very dumb example of what I did. I came across this in mid last year, and I started with the question, How do I make $1 million by 2024? Just to see how the exercise goes. Now, identify 20 ways to arrive at that solution. In my case, I need to identify 20 ways I can make $1 million. Okay. Now, that you think it's easy? Now start writing the 20 points. I was stuck at 5. I took about 4 to 5 hours to complete all the 20 things which came into mind. You will not believe me what 19 and 20 are. 19 is driving Uber during the weekends, and 20 was translation something. And another one point which I had, I think 18 was doing a franchisee business, KFC's or McDonald's or whatever, a franchisee business. Now, when I did this exercise, I didn't look at investments or anything. I just focused on how do I make $1 million by end of 2024. That's the question I had. And for that, I was trying to arrive at solutions. The fifth in the list was YouTube videos. Now, once you have this 20, read through them, pick one or two, and start. They add 1 or 2 points, and they become the question. For instance, my fifth point was start YouTube videos. I took that. How do I start YouTube videos? And that will have another 20. You see the nest which is happening. Believe me, it's so powerful. You will be amazed at the result, what you see. You would not have thought about anything. I mean, for example, I never thought of driving Uber, right? But that will pop up to you. What you have not seen or experienced is something what you will see in that exercise. So in that YouTube videos, then again, how do I do YouTube videos? Interviews of successful people, podcasts, reading a book, summarizing a book, like the book reviews. What more? YouTube shorts, fun YouTube shorts, traffic YouTube short. Went into all these aspects. Educative videos, sharing my experiences. Sharing my experiences stood out for me. I mean, I had 20 more. I'm not going into the detail, but yeah, sharing my experience stood out. I said, let me start with this. But I had a lot of assumptions there. How will people perceive me? How will people look at me? What would be the outcome of this? Now, that went into an ideation. I had to start my YouTube channel Jan 1st. But what happened thereafter? So I went into a lot more detail with that planning. Then I said, I'm going to build a business around this where I share my videos and I start my own consulting works. And that's how the fractional works came into picture. And today I do quite a few other things. And these gave me answers. Now, these answers which were practical, meaningful, and applicable to me started coming out. It took 6 months for me to ideate on the whole thing, and finally I started doing the YouTube videos mid of last month. June is when I started, and July is when I'm being consistent, at least 2 videos a week. Now, one of the most other important aspects when you're framing the question, make them smart questions. Simple, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Make them smart questions. Don't go into hypothetical questions. For example, in my case, if you see that example, how do I make $1 million? $1 million in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, in the next 30 years, next 50 years. What's the time? If there is no time, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. So you need to have that. That's why I'm stressing on have that smart goal turn question, which will give you more impactful answers. Trust me, mindstorming will blow your mind when you sit down and do it. I'm giving the link below to Brain Stacy's website itself where he explains, but the summary is this. Translate your solution into a question, a smart question, and start identifying 20 ways to reach there. In that, pick again. If you can, for all the 20, do another 20. Can you believe the power? 400 ideas you have, which I'm sure you would not have any time in your life. It's not so easy. You want to multiply that, you take the next 20 and do another 20. Drill down until unless you have the eureka moment. That will change the way you look at the world and you look at yourself. Trust me on this. Now, going into the other aspect, there are a lot of other aspects or other ways to validate your idea. I'm giving a couple of links in the description below, but I would like to spend some time on two ways which I found very thought provoking, or rather practical for me. One is a lean market validation methodology. This is coined by or written by Jim Simic. He's the founder of the Product Plan. The link is down below. And he elucidates on 10 points to validate your idea. First, he says, write down the product concept. Translate your vision into a blueprint. That's what he says to start with. Then decide if you want to go ahead or not. Once you start doing the blueprint, you'll get an idea. It's like you want to construct a house, you'll have the engineer do the blueprint for you. Then you decide, okay, I wanted a 3-bedroom duplex house with 2 car parks. Should I go with that, or shall I make one more floor and go with 4 bedrooms, or shall I add one more car park, whatever. As the blueprint is coming into light, you will have more ideas. And finally, you will come to an aspect of your budget, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to build this way, right? So decide. And one of the best ways to decide is startup weekends are no longer quite famous here in India, but they are famous outside. I have seen Australia, Europe, US. Startup weekend is something which on a Saturday morning, you get into a room with quite a few others, and by Monday, you will have your idea with your MVP out, right? So that's called a startup weekend, and all 3 days you're staying there. Usually, organizers of the startup weekend will arrange for your sleeping part, taking bath, refreshing, and everything, food and everything is taken care. All you need to focus is on your idea. I was part of the first 2 startup weekends in India, but unfortunately now it does not happen anymore here, or I have not heard them happening here, but it's still happening across the world. So if you have an opportunity to participate in a startup weekend, that's the best place to start, especially if you're a single founder or 2 people. You go there. If not all ideas, you will meet a lot of people who are thinking like you or whatever, and you can make them part of your team. So there are huge benefits of startup weekends. The next point, what he says is, most of the problems you have identified are assumptions. You are making an assumption that this problem exists. Now, when you start talking to potential clients, is when you will understand if these assumptions are right or wrong. The next point is find the truth. Dig deep, go and speak to the potential clients and understand if there is truth to the idea what you are wanting to build. That will give you a more clearer picture. And use your network to reach as many potential customers as you can. So when I say this, for example, if you're building something for a large mass, so for example, you're building something out of India for the Indian market, don't just talk to the people around you in the city where you are. Use your network to reach out to other cities to do small surveys. Pick up the phone, talk to them. One thing I hate is when people send, market research questionnaires. I personally don't like it. I like rather picking up the phone and speaking, setting up, do a video call if possible. Have the personal connect to understand and get the value out of it. Most of us who are, I also answer quite a few surveys, but most of the people who answer surveys are just in a different mindset, and they're just answering the survey because as a favor or whatever it is. But as the same person, if you do a video call, the whole perspective changes, the answers changes. So get in as much as possible from your network. The next point is also about how you structure the questions and interview them to understand how you can get the answers what you are looking for, rather than abstract responses which might or might not make sense to you, or will take time to completely understand the whole answer, what you're hearing. And when you are talking to people, keep repeatedly asking the question, why? Do you think you like this kind of service? Yes. Why? Because it'll save time, it'll save money, it'll save my mental agony. Why does it save your mental agony? Start with the offset questions, go into the why, which makes a lot more sense when you collate all these answers and start looking at it from the mind map perspective. It'll give you a lot more information. Now, this is something what I have been stressing from day one, and I always stress when I teach or when I talk on my videos. You can look at from my first video. Identify the value proposition. What is the value you are giving your client? What are, for the amount they're paying you? If that justifies, it makes a lot of sense for you to start building. And trust me, when you demonstrate the value proposition to your potential clients, it is going to give you what you require, and they will sign up with you if they see the true value of what you are saying is understood by them. There are times when the value proposition is not understood, so you might take a little bit more time to demonstrate to them the value, but once they buy in, they're with you. The last one is start building your MVP. So this framework made a little sense to me from idea validation standpoint, and I want to share here. And there's one more method which also I liked, which is nothing but the startup grinds methodology. This also I've given the link in the description. Write the problem, don't write the solution. Write the problem. Right? It goes against the mindstorming methodology where you ask a smart question and you start identifying answer. But start with the problem here. The second thing is interesting for me. Determine if it's a tier 1 problem. Now, what is a tier 1 problem? Tier 1 problem, I'll give you a simplest of the examples of a tier 1 problem. If you have technology to solve the traffic problems in any tier 1 city across the world, it's a tier 1 problem. Trust me, people are wanting that solution. If your product or service is providing that solution, that's a tier 1. So like this, you can categorize what are tier 1 problems, what are tier 2 problems, what are tier 3 problems, and where do you fall. Honestly speaking, Haplo at this point of time is a tier 1 problem for one segment of people, and tier 2 problem for another segment, and tier 3 problem for another segment. So when we do the ideal customer profile, we looked at these aspects and how do we demonstrate value to the tier 1. So that's the category. And Studio Navaka, personally, I felt it is a mixture of tier 1, tier 2 kind of problem to solve. I have loads of competition. There are a lot of people who are doing what I'm doing, but there is a segment which is completely missing, and that's where Studio Navaka comes into picture, into building your ideas to reality. That's why I call it the visionary lab, because it all starts with a dream and it becomes a vision. In summary, there are a lot of frameworks for you to utilize to make sense of, to start building your idea. But I highly recommend spend a lot of time in ideation. Let it take 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year. Don't jump in unless you are confident, at least to 80-90% level, that your product or service makes an impact. And always start with what you have in hand. Don't break your hand on what is not hand. Don't bank on funding will come, somebody will give me money. No, that does not happen. Statistically, only 1 out of 10 startups can get to a level of funding. Predominantly, most of the startups might raise an angel, and after that it dies off because of various reasons, because what the investors are looking and what products are coming out are totally different. So my humble request, don't start thinking that you're going to raise funds, or somebody promises, you know what, you build 10 customers, I'll give you $1 million. Please do not trust any of them. If they're so confident that if you have 10 customers, they'll give you $1 million, for the 10 customers, ask them $10,000. Make sense? If an investor is saying, I'm going to give you $1 million if you have 10 customers, tell them, why don't you give me 10,000? I'll bring the 10 customers. If they believe in your idea, they will go invest in it. Otherwise, no. And I don't want that becomes a different topic. And I'm definitely going to do this on how venture capitalists work in India and how ideators and people who want to change the world look at them and build their ideas and end of the day burn their hands. A lot of interesting topic coming, but here in a summary, don't start with all these assumptions. Start with what is in your hand, see how you can co-create with others so that you build an ecosystem and make sense out of it. Well, hope this made sense, and hope the mindstorming and effectuation techniques will help you too. If you still have questions, I have my LinkedIn profile below and the link to my calendar below. Please do connect with me and set some time for us to talk, and I can help you in whatever way I can. Thank you.